Tonight, Rolling with the Beard, we're reviewing chicken! This is a can of sliced carrots, and this is Chicken by Keymaster Games. And the whole purpose of this is so you have some form of references to how big this canister is. It's quite cute and charming, and there's even print all in the inside of the can. Pretty snazzy. But inside here might be what I would call my favorite new dice chucking game. Don't worry, all the pieces are quite lovely, even though they fit inside this little can. The board here, I had mixed feelings about this at first, but it is kind of a nice little clothy boy here. And I will say that they did design all these chips to be nice and chunky so they don't really fall all over the place. And even at high player counts, they still tend to keep their position on the score track. Chicken is a dice chunking push your luck game for 2 to 8 players. Yes, that's right, it will play 8 players. It's not my favorite at 8, but it does play 8 players. The goal of the game is to be the first player to gain 25 points. As you can tell, the game is quite easy to set up. I almost have it set up as we're just here talking. Largely, you just separate some dice, roll out the board, and you're ready to go. Gameplay is quite simple. Players will roll these 4 white dice, and any foxes that they roll are set to the side, and if they roll any chickens, those are also set to the side. Now, chickens will score you 1 point, assuming you don't bust. If you get 3 of these foxes, you do bust, and you don't score any points. Now, the interesting thing about this game is whenever you roll eggs, you add dice from the Coop to your pool of dice that you're rolling, starting off with the yellow dice, because the yellow dice are a little easier than the red dice. We'll get into that in just a moment. Now, I rolled 2 eggs, so I would add 2 dice from the Coop. Now, I can have exactly 1 reroll. So I don't get to reroll the fox or the chicken, and I score points or could bust. Now, I do get to roll the eggs or any blanks that I rolled. 1 point isn't very much, so I'll go ahead and push my luck, and I roll, and look at that. I ended up with a total of 2 foxes, fox-eye, foxen, I don't know, doesn't matter, but less than 3, so I didn't bust. And I did get 3 chickens, so that means I get 3 points. 1, 2, 3. I advanced my token here on the score track, so that's awesome. Now, what's interesting about this game is now all these dice that I rolled now get pushed to the next player. So now they're rolling 6 dice instead of the 4 that I initially rolled. And then if they roll any more eggs, then they will add dice to their pool as well. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This pool of dice that is getting passed around the table will continue to grow and grow and grow, which you think, well, that's great. That's more opportunity for points. But yes, it is also more opportunity to bust. So what you can do is prior to making your first roll, a player can spend 1 point to reset the dice pool back to just the 4 original white dice. And trust me, sometimes you do want to do this, but other times you do just have to push your luck and shoot the moon, so to speak, because you're really far behind. I mentioned before that the yellow dice are easier. They have less fox heads on them. The reds have more fox heads on them, but they also have some double chicken heads, which is, 2 points per. So it's quite simple. Players will chuck the dice, hope to not bust by getting too many fox, get chickens for points, eggs, add dice to your dice pool that you're rolling, and then you pass that nonsense on to the player to your left. Now, you can always spend 1 point at the beginning of your turn to reset the dice pool back to those original 4 dice. And that is chicken in a nutshell, or kind of in a canister thing. So I went into this with little to no expectations, and this game really surprised me. I really enjoyed it. It is probably my new favorite, light, easy dice chucker. It blows away, like zombie dice or something out of the water. And like other Keymaster games, the components are absolutely amazing. The little chunky player markers that you use to keep score are very nice, and they're a good size too. They're small enough that everything fits in the can comfortably, but they're big enough to be able to move around the scoreboard and even share spaces with other players and stack them. They stack fine. They don't get knocked over. We never had any issues with that. The screen printing on them is phenomenal. And some of the characters on there, like one is actually a pile of poo. I mean, that's pretty funny. The board is fine. At first I didn't think I would like the cloth board, but it kind of grew on me, and now I do enjoy it. And I think it's nice that it's easy. You can just kind of roll it up and stick it in the tube. The rules are clear, easy. The dice quality is nice. They're engraved and painted dice. I don't see them ever wearing down or seeing any issues with those. But it's easy to teach. It's a nice, fun, quick little dice chucker. And obviously there's other push your luck games out there like this, where if you roll too many of something, you bust. But this game, that one little rule change with rolling the eggs, adding additional dice to your dice pool, is the one element of this game that, in my opinion, shoots it way above any other little dice chucker. Because it kind of makes all the players at the table a little more interested during your turn, because they see, this dice pool possibly building up bigger and bigger. And then you start thinking, when it comes to you, there's a whole bunch of dice there to roll. So that's a lot of opportunity to score points, but also a lot of opportunity to bust. So often it is worth it to spend that point. Yes, you lose a point and that sucks, but you get to reset that dice pool back to just the 4 original dice. But then sometimes, that rule will facilitate table talk. If you're sitting around the table and that dice pool is pretty big, and you see like the player to your right, they're getting ready to start their turn, you may try to convince them to maybe reset that dice pool, let them take the hit of the point, hopefully, if you're persuasive enough, and then, maybe you'll only be rolling 4 or 6 dice, which kind of 6 dice feels kind of like the sweet spot for the luck, the risk versus reward on there. So even at large player counts, it plays really well and fast. It's just a solid 10-minute little game, and that container is nice. Normally I'm not a fan of containers or tins, stuff like that aren't the typical like square clamshell box, but in this case this one is quite rigid. It fits in your backpack or in your glove box or wherever you want to take it. There's only one minor complaint that I have about the game, and it's easily fixed, and it's kind of minor. The win condition is the first player to score 25 points. It doesn't really say anything about everyone getting even or equal number of turns. We do house rule that, so whoever the first player is, that we give them the lid to the container, just to keep track of who went first, so that way everyone gets an equal shot. And then that makes it a little more interesting too at the end, because if somebody has 25 points, they're like, well, maybe I push my luck a little bit further to try to get 26, 27 points, because so-and-so is right on my tail with, 23, 22 points, and they may be able to surpass me. I know you can maybe argue that going first, maybe you're at a disadvantage because you're only rolling the 4 initial dice, but I still think it's best to house rule it like that. Anyways, this game is dope. Totally check it out. I think it has a street price of like $15 or $20. Anyways, it's definitely staying in the Beards collection. And if you found this episode entertaining or informative, please consider clicking that subscribe button. And thanks again for watching another episode of Rolling with the Beard. You know how you ask an old woman if she wants more chicken? Do you want any more chicken? That joke's